Let's crowd in center around the mic. Michael, can you stand up? Anybody want to get on that?
All right, folks, what's up? We're down here. CoolassMike, Bike Talks at City Hall. About to start the press conference right now. Here we go.
Good morning.
Morning, Mike.
Morning. I'd like to thank you all for coming, taking the time out of your busy schedules to be with us here today. On June 16th, 2 weeks ago to this day, there was an unspeakable tragedy that happened here in the city. A woman hit a cyclist. A woman driving on Jefferson Boulevard hit a cyclist, and she hit another one, and she hit another one, and she hit another one. She didn't stop until yards down the road, leaving behind her a trail of carnage and twisted metal, sending 11 people to the hospital with significant injuries. The ambulance responded, LAPD responded, but something was odd about LAPD's partial and preliminary investigation. You're going to hear about that today. My name is Ross Hirsch. I'm an attorney here in Los Angeles. I get up in the morning, I kiss my wife goodbye, kiss my kids goodbye, I get on my bike and I come down to my office here in downtown LA. I need to travel safely. My wife and kids need me to travel safely. I don't want to be the victim of an unspeakable tragedy. The June 16th incident was not the only unspeakable tragedy that happens here on our roadways. Over 30,000 people die each year as a result of car crashes on our roads. In 2010, over 30,000 people died as a result of car crashes. 2009, over 30,000 people died as a result of car crashes on our roadways. In 1950, how many people do you think died as a result of car crashes on our roadways? Over 30,000. Our government says traffic accidents are the #1 leading cause of deaths of folks between the ages of 3 and 34 years old. Now, the event that happened on June 16th wasn't the only unspeakable tragedy, but it brought those tragic figures into focus right here in Los Angeles. And it was totally preventable. So what we've done is, from that incident, there's a silver lining. And that silver lining is that cyclists and transportation advocates from all across the county have come together to stand united to say, we want safe streets. We want safe streets. And we want justice. We want safe streets and we want justice, and we're here to tell our elected officials and our law enforcement officers that we want safe streets, we want justice, and there are consequences. So what we have here today for you is a few folks, and they're going to talk to you about what's gone on since the June 16th incident. These folks are deeply committed to bringing you safe streets and justice to our streets of LA. So with that, let me turn it over to Alex Thompson. Alex Thompson's a tireless bike activist. He is the president of Bikeside LA, and I'll let him take over.
Dr. Alex Thompson, ALEXTH. Dr. Alex Thompson, ALEXTHOMPSON. Traditional spelling. I'm the president of Bikeside LA, so I wanted to talk to you a little bit about what happened. As some of you know, LAPD took their initial report on this collision, but the incident took place in Culver City. And it just goes to show you that LAPD wasn't on the ball from the beginning. If you look at the street signs anywhere in the city, you'll see that street signs in Los Angeles are blue and white. And the street signs on the corner where this collision took place are green and white. So any LAPD investigator who had their head screwed on straight would have looked up at the signs and knew right away they were in Culver City. They should have never taken this report. They should also have never taken this report because they're not qualified to do this right. Apparently, LAPD, they briefed us in that building behind you, the LAPD headquarters, that the primary cause of the collision, from their point of view, preliminarily, is pedestrians on the roadway. In other words, cyclists that were standing next to their bikes. I think that's embarrassing, and I find it to be kind of a waste of time that we have to come here to tell everybody and to explain to LAPD that when you have a drunk driver who is driving erratically, who was driving in a parking lane when she hit people, that's a drunk driving is the cause there, not pedestrians in the roadway. I think it's embarrassing that the greatest obstacle to getting justice in an incident that took place in Culver City is here in Los Angeles, not in Culver City. No one ever takes a look at a drunk driver hitting a parked car and says, well, that parked car really deserved it. But somehow LAPD came to the conclusion here that the parked car was at fault, or that the cyclists were at fault who were standing in a parking lane. So I think that's pretty bad. It speaks poorly of LAPD that they came to that conclusion. Now, the case has been transferred to Culver City, and I hope that they'll do a thorough and unbiased investigation. We really need it. But I think that a lot of what's going to happen here rests in the hands of the district attorney's office. They have the capacity to decide whether to charge Christine Dahab, the motorist in this collision, with a felony, and I think that they ought to. Christine Dahab ought to be convicted of felony DUI in at least 6 counts. Felony DUI, if most of us think if you get pulled over and your blood alcohol level is below 0.08 that you're not guilty of DUI. Well, that's not the case. If it turns out that alcohol and drugs were influencing your actions and your blood alcohol comes out to be 0.07, as Christine Dahab blew on the night of the incident, you are guilty of felony DUI. And in many states, in fact, in Colorado and in many other countries, the legal limit is 0.05. So we know that there's dispute about what's the appropriate level here. So the district attorney should charge Christine Dahab with at least 6 felony counts of DUI, and here's why. They need 3 things to show that Dahab was guilty of DUI, felony DUI. 1, they need to show that her actions, that her driving, while she was driving, she was under the influence of alcohol and drugs. That's clearly the case. She blew 0.07. We know that any alcohol in your system makes you unsafe to drive. San Diego researchers have shown that if you blow a 0.01, you're impaired. She had a 0.07 and she was witnessed to be driving erratically. And she drove in a place she should have never driven. And she hit 11 things that happened to be human beings. So that's a lot of reasons why she was under the influence. 2, the DA needs to be able to prove that Christine Dahab broke the law. Well, there's a really simple law here, okay? If there's a pedestrian in the roadway, you have to exercise due care to avoid that pedestrian and take care of them. So Christine Dahab clearly did not do that, and the DA's got an easy one on that. And finally, you have to show that that violating that law led to somebody being severely injured, and that's obviously the case here. We had 6 people who were in the hospital days after the incident. We had, by my count, at least 7 broken bones across 6 victims. We had victims who couldn't be operated on because